What's really good, guys? It's your boy Hatter Ali from the What's Really Good podcast. And we got my guy in the building from Fantasy Pros, my boy Pat Fitzmaurice in the building. What's going on, my guy?
Hatter, great to see you again, man. Looking good, and I love the new setup, man.
Oh,
The
yes.
Sean Taylor jersey in the background, beautiful.
See, the thing is, when we had our show last year, I was like, man, I got to be like Pat, man. So, I had to get a little updated. I had to, soften the corners up a little bit, and now we in business.
Yeah, man, it's looking great. I love it.
Appreciate you. Hey, Pat, we are heading into a very interesting fantasy season this year. And obviously, this show is about players to avoid and players to target for the upcoming fantasy season. So, what are some of the people that you would want to target?
Right now, I'll make you happy to start off, Hatter. I like Jayden Daniels a lot.
My
And,
guy.
yeah, so
Telling you.
yeah, we all know that running quarterbacks are a cheat code, right? And
100%.
it's funny. I've been looking at some people's projections, not only the Fantasy Pros projections, but other people, ESPN, bunch of other sites, and all of them have Anthony Richardson and Jayden Daniels with about the same number of passing yards, about the same number of TD passes, about the same number of rushing yards. The only big difference, they all have Richardson projected for about 8 or 9 touchdown runs and Jayden Daniels for about 4.5.
Right.
And man, like rushing touchdowns for quarterbacks are pretty hard to predict. I mean, we saw Josh Allen have 6, 7, 8, 9 a year. All of a sudden he spikes up to 15 last year. Like, I don't think it would be that surprising to anyone if Jayden Daniels ran for more touchdowns than Anthony Richardson. And yet Anthony Richardson is getting drafted as this mid-range quarterback 1, and Jayden Daniels is getting drafted as like a high-end quarterback 2. So, man, I think there's value there. And like this dude's going to have some big games right away, I think, with his rushing ability. He's got some weapons too, man. McLaurin, who I think is another good player to target, who's being undervalued in drafts. Jahan Dotson. He's got some tight ends now with, Zach Ertz. And if Ertz is getting a little old or gets hurt, they got Ben Sinnott, who was a real nice pickup in the draft. I think Jayden Daniels is ready to hit the ground running, man.
Pat, I think you might just need to switch over from the Packers to the Commanders because it's just the right time to join the bandwagon, ain't it? Because I'm going to tell you, Jayden Daniels is on my target list as well. I mean, listen, Pat, you remember RG3's rookie season, man. Amazing, And the thing is, with Jayden Daniels, not only – I feel like he will be a better player than RG3. See, the difference between Jayden and RG3 is, Jayden knows how to read defenses, like his pre-snap and post-snap processes and readings out the window. I mean, that's one of the things that, caught a lot of coaches' eyes and, kind of had him, get drafted the way he did and his performance he did in college. I mean, he's going to be amazing. I mean, think about it. We got a lot of O-line help, in free agency, and we got Coleman in the draft. So, you're building the foundation right for the guy. And, all the time when we got players and stuff like that in our team, the foundation wasn't built correctly for the quarterback, which caused them to, obviously get injured. And, I mean, look, how many quarterback switches did we have over the years? You know what I mean? And I think, this time it will definitely be the right way that Washington will go about quarterbacks, and Jayden Daniels is the guy. And, let's be honest, he's a way, way better passer than RG3. I mean, this guy can pass, he can run, he can do anything, I think he's going to have an amazing year this year. I'm already on my way, about to get, a couple of his jerseys, in black. We got the home and away jersey. I'm ready. I'm ready. So, guys, get ready to expect big numbers in fantasy with Jayden Daniels for sure.
I'm with you, man. I just the one thing he's got to do is learn to protect himself, because he took some big time shots for LSU. He's got to learn how to slide, and I'm sure they're going to emphasize that with him in training camp. But That's it. Like that game against Alabama last year, LSU, Alabama, neck and neck. And then I think it was Jayden Daniels taking a crushing shot from pretty sure it was Dallas Turner that knocked him out. And then Alabama
I
kind of,
remember that. I
put the
remember
gas
that.
on it and ran that game. But yeah, man. But if Jayden Daniels stays healthy, look out. Like I think he's going to finish it as a quarterback one for sure. Probably, top 10.
No, I definitely think so. I mean, Jane Daniels is that guy. People saying he's small and all that, but listen, man. I mean, there's all these guys, man. Quarterbacks. The world has evolved. The sport has evolved. It's more. When it comes to quarterbacks, things will always be protected nowadays. But once again, the old line we have now is way better than what it was, used to be. So I think, like I said, the foundation, if it's set correctly for him, his rookie year, it's going to be wonders for him. And then, like you were saying, another guy that I would target is obviously has to be my boy Terry McLaurin now. I mean, let's be honest, okay? 77 plus catches, over 1,000 yards, 4 years in a row throughout many various quarterbacks that we've been through. I mean, come on, now, we cannot hate on that. So Terry's a real deal now, and I think having Jayden there, I think it's going to be one of those things and one of those years that it's just going to be blossom numbers for both.
Yeah, solid value on McLaurin, who I think his average draft position is like wide receiver 32. I think that's too low now that he's got a legit quarterback. And I know last year for a while, Sam Howell was throwing a lot of passes. At one point, he led the NFL in pass attempts. But I don't think Sam Howell felt real comfortable throwing to the outside. It seemed like he liked to work the middle of the field more. So maybe it wasn't McLaurin getting targeted as much as he should have, considering that he was far and away the best receiver they had and still is.
Right.
I mean, like this guy is that's what he needs, just finally to be paired with a good passer. And look what Jayden Daniels did last year at LSU for Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. Both of those guys had big, big seasons.
100%. Once again, all the numbers he did in the past were amazing, but I think this will be his year where hopefully, they stop hating on the guy and put him in the Pro Bowl, man. Shoot, man, you guys got to give these guys their flowers now.
You guys have suffered for a long time, man. You deserve some good things.
100%. So let's see who else you got on the target list.
Let's talk about, since we were just talking about Anthony Richardson a second ago. I like Jonathan Taylor a lot, and a lot of that has to do with Anthony Richardson. And I know Jonathan Taylor, it's not like he's going under the radar or anything. Right. He is a, early second round pick in most drafts, but I think you can make a good case for him being a guy who should be going as high as 108, right. 109. We know that rushing quarterbacks kind of help the rushing efficiency of their running backs. And we saw that in that RG3 year. That was Alfred Morris's rookie year. And Alf ran for 1,600 yards and 13 touchdowns that year.
Look at that.
And yeah, and like, I don't think, even you think Alfred Morris was a special running back. Mm-hmm. But like it really helped him that he had RG3 as a threat, because when they ran those run pass options, linebackers got to wait and see where the ball's going. If RG3 sticks it in Alfred Morris's breadbasket, is it really a handoff, or is RG3 going to pull it out and scoot around end?
Right.
And I think the Colts are going to be able to do that same kind of thing with Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. And here's a guy, I mean, Taylor hasn't stayed healthy the last couple of years, but back in 2021, this is a dude who had over 2,000 yards from scrimmage.
Oh, we all remember that now.
20 touchdowns. Yeah, pretty much broke the league. I mean, he was a fantasy force. Like, this dude is legit. And we saw last year early in the season when Taylor was on IR and Zach Moss got to play with Anthony Richardson. Zach Moss put up some big numbers. Mm-hmm. And I think Zach Moss kind of tricked people into thinking he's good. Because after Anthony Richardson was out for the season, from week 6 on, Zach Moss averaged like 3.6 yards per carry. Just wasn't the same dude. But put Taylor together with Anthony Richardson and watch the sparks fly, man. It's going to be exciting.
Hey, I think Taylor might, once again, it was always that injury thing last year, here and there and all that. I think this year he's going to rebound and go back to his normal stuff as well. And, hopefully Anthony stays healthy as well. And, like you were saying, it's all about the breadbasket. Once they both, click together, hey, it's going to be lights out for them for sure.
Yes, sir. I was just going to run down 2 more running backs I'm pretty excited about for this year.
Okay.
Kenneth Walker.
Woo!
I just think he's good, man. And I remember when he came into the league a couple of years ago, some people thought he was every bit as good a prospect as Breece Hall. And I don't know that they were necessarily wrong about that. It's just, Hall's got this do-it-all role, and
Right.
he's counted on to be a workhorse. And I know Seattle wants to use Zach Charbonnet too, and maybe it's the presence of Charbonnet, a second-round draft pick, that's kind of scaring people away from Kenneth Walker. But in games where both Walker and Charbonnet played last year, Charbonnet only averaged 7.4 touches a game, carries plus reception. So it was the Walker show for sure. And I know they've got a different play caller this year, but I just think Walker's better than Charbonnet. No running back the last 2 years has forced more missed tackles than Kenneth Walker. And that's even though he's missed 4 games the last 2 years. So this dude is really good. And, he's available in some drafts in the 6th round.
That's crazy. And
Yeah.
see, Walker's that guy, man. He's one of those players that, not much people, they sleep on him. This guy, I feel like is what, obviously I'm not going to say he's Marshawn Lynch, but he's in the same jersey now. Seattle Seahawks, that is. And I feel like I've never seen this guy go down with 1 tackle ever. I feel like he breaks most tackles all the damn time. And that's what you need in a running back. You need a physical guy like that who keeps trying to push and get you some numbers and get you some points. And I'm on that. I'm with you on that. I would definitely target Kenneth Walker this year as well.
Yeah, you said it, Hatter. He is a slippery dude for sure. And one more, this guy's a little more under the radar, Chase Brown.
Mm-hmm.
So no more Joe Mixon in Cincinnati. It's going to be probably
Someone got to get the rock.
Exactly. And I think people think it's going to be a combination of Zach Moss and Chase Brown, and maybe it will be. But as I just mentioned, after from week 6 on, Zach Moss averaged 3.6 yards per carry. And we know he was never able to get a foothold in Buffalo and win a big role. I think Zach Moss was considered a little bit of a disappointment there. He's not explosive. He doesn't catch passes. Chase Brown is explosive. He's got 4.4 speed. He was great in the passing game, had some big plays last year, kind of a small sample size, but he had some really long catch and runs last year. And this is a dude who, if they decide Chase Brown is a lot better than Zach Moss and want to give him that Joe Mixon role where he's the do it all back,
Right.
he can handle that sort of a load. His final year at the University of Illinois, Chase Brown averaged 27 carries a game. They just let that dude carry the mail in his last season at Illinois. So if there's any question that he can be a workhorse, if they want him to be one, I hope that last college season for him sort of answers that question.
No, how many times did Chase Brown stole Mixon's touchdowns last year? There was a few times, and I've seen his track record, and I've seen the way his playing style is. He is another of those guys is under the radar. And listen, if someone's the runner up for any team, you have to consider that. You have to. If you're down there in the 6th round or you're looking for a running back and he's up there, or even the 7th, 8th round and he's up there, you got to take that. That's a steal. Because look, some of these picks might just take you to the championship in fantasy. So you can't sleep on people like that.
That's it, man. And right now he's being priced like a guy who's going to share work. And if he shares work and you get him at that price and he just kind of gives you what, you paid for, that's fine. But I think there's potential for a lot more with him.
I agree with you. And look, obviously someone got to get the rock with the Bengals at running back. Someone needs to get the rock at wide receiver with the Chargers, which is my next player that I would target is Mr. Lad McConkey. Listen now. Listen. He will be a target machine for the Chargers. You got Justin at QB. Look the way he fed Allen last year. I mean, his age and the way his numbers were showing last year was amazing. And with McConkey is that he's an amazing route runner. I think he's one of the best one coming out in this draft. And not only that, he's crazy after the catch. He's great after the catch. And listen, look at the wide receiver room they got in the Chargers right now. Palmer, all right, we had those games. He had those games last year. Some of those games, a touchdown and 80, 90 yards. He had those games. But listen, Quentin Johnson, what a disappointment he was, ain't it?
Yeah.
And Ladd is in there, and I think he will do amazing for the jump. I think he's going to be fed by Justin. I mean, amazing quarterback, and that's another thing that benefits Ladd. And I think in a matter of no time, in the middle or by the end of the season, I feel like he will be the wide receiver one for the Chargers.
Yeah, he is so slippery, man. 3 of my buddies from Fantasy Pros went to the Senior Bowl this year, and they said on the first day of practice, Ladd was just clowning cornerbacks. Like he was just making these guys look silly and leaving them in the dust and getting wide open and catching ball after ball in drills. On day 2, these guys were all so afraid of looking stupid trying to cover him that they were playing like 10 yards off him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's that kind of dude. And supposedly the reports from him on him from minicamp were just glowing. Like, I guess he looked great. Yeah, man, he could be a high volume dude for them right away. And like you said, Quentin Johnston didn't work out at all. They got, Josh Palmer, who's decent player, but not like a heavy duty guy.
Right.
They signed, I think, DJ Chark, hit or miss.
Had his day.
Yeah, exactly. So McConkey's definitely in line to be a big producer for them right away.
I feel like his route running is so good that he just gets away from the defenders, and I think Justin his no look passes will and would combined with Ladd will get it done this year, and I think Ladd is one of those guys, man, a sleeper definitely, and I think a guy you should definitely target, and that goes to my next guy, Mr. Jaylen Warren. Oh my goodness. I'm going to tell you one thing, man. When I lost one of the games last year in fantasy, my opponent, who actually ended up being the championship in my league, had Jaylen Warren. And how big of people slept on this guy, and I ain't gonna lie, I slept on him too. But I woke up after those 90-yard touchdown he had that game that made me lose that game. I'm like, dude, like this guy is serious. I mean, look, we all saw how Najee did last year. Warren did wonders. Every time he touched the ball, he made the most of his opportunities. Right? He's the first for having most missed tackles forced in the whole league at running back last year, and is second for yards after contact last year. I mean, he had over 100 fewer carries than Harris did, but he was still better per attempt basis. I mean, that's crazy. So I think, this is his year, and I truly think he will be leaving Harris in the dust this upcoming season.
Yeah, man, explosive in both the run game and as a pass catcher. And it's also kind of nice that the Pittsburgh Steelers have been investing in their offensive line the last couple of years. Like, this is probably going to be the best offensive line they've had in the last decade this year. So, my only hesitation with him, Hatter, is that Arthur Smith is calling the plays, and Arthur Smith was like,
that is true.
He had the sports car in the garage last year with Bijan Robinson, and he wanted to drive the family sedan with Tyler Algier.
Right.
And that's my only fear, that like it's going to be inconsistent usage for those guys. But man, I mean, it is a 2-man backfield. We know they're both going to get their touches, and Warren is going to have some really good weeks.
Yeah, I definitely think Warren is still on top of Najee for me. And like you were saying, with addition with Arthur Smith, I think Warren will have the most of the good spirit from that rather than Najee. So that is definitely to keep in mind.
Yeah, for sure, man. Let's talk about Jalen Waddle. So yeah, a dude who's been in the league 3 years and is 3 for 3 and pumping out 1,000-yard seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And the last 2 years he's done it despite playing with Tyreek Hill who's had 1,700 yards both years.
Yep.
And last year, like I think Waddle's numbers, he barely cleared 1,000 yards last year, but I think his numbers would have been better. That dude was banged up constantly.
Right.
Like he was just like nothing major, but like was just getting banged up and not healthy for much of the year. And what kind of excites me about Waddle for this year is that the Dolphins lost a lot on defense. They lost Christian Wilkins, one of the best defensive tackles in the league. They lost Xavier Howard, who's been a really good cornerback for them. Andrew Van Ginkel, who's been a really underrated edge rusher. I think they lost a couple other edge guys. And they lost Vic Fangio, who's like one of the best defensive coordinators in the league, goes to Philadelphia. That defense is going to be worse this year. And I think that's going to maybe mean more shootouts for the Dolphins, where they have to just let Tua fire away and throw 40 plus passes. And I think it's going to lead to some really big games for the Miami passing attack. So I'm not worried about the presence of Tyreek Hill there. And like, to me, Waddle is the best number 2 receiver in the game. I know you can make a case for whoever you call number 2 in San Francisco, or, T Higgins, some other dudes, but like, I don't care that Waddle isn't the number 1 receiver in Miami. Like when he's available in the 4th or 5th round, like I'm pushing the draft button.
I totally agree. Rookie year for Waddle, drafted him. Last year, drafted him. He's one of those guys is when you plug him in, which he will always be plugged in, he will always perform. He gets you that solid 15, 16 points every game. And like you were saying, with all those players gone in Miami, they're going to be backed up in games. And we already know, even when them not being back in games, Tua will throw the rock. And I think Waddle will do better numbers he had. And I think it just might be his best year this year.
Could be. Yeah, man. We're gonna see a lot of scoring in Miami games.
100%.
Next year. Both sides.
100%. And the heat gets you hyped up now. People forgetting about that. When it's hot, man, people are itching. They itching. So I definitely know that Miami is going to be crazy this year.
Definitely. And you got to let me shout out a Packer. So I gotta mention Christian Watson too. Yeah, I mean, like people are really down on him. His ADP is in the 40s at wide receiver this year. But I think if he's healthy and like he's had these hamstring issues, but he saw a specialist in the offseason, made some training adjustments. Hopefully he's going to stay healthy. If he does, I think he's Green Bay's number 1 receiver, not Jayden Reed. Because when Reed and Watson and Romeo Doubs all played together last year, Watson had the biggest target share. And it was a pretty healthy target share. I want to say it was like 26, 27%. And this is a dude, Hatter, who's 6'4", has sub 4.4 speed. I think it was like 4.33 at the combine. Just unbelievably fast, unbelievably big. And his rookie year, he scored 8 touchdowns in a 4-game stretch. And there was a stretch last year where he had 4 touchdowns in a 3-game stretch. So like this dude can make some big plays happen. They throw to him downfield. His average depth at target last year was like 15.6 yards. Big play waiting to happen, just needs to stay healthy, and he's going way too low in drafts.
I definitely agree. And look, it can't be an episode if you can't shout out your boys, right?
That's right.
You had to put Watson in there. And listen, this guy is one of those dudes that just, is a hidden star. This guy, he is a perfect wide receiver. The injuries kind of was getting to him last year here and there. And I think this year, if he stays healthy, the sky is the limit for this guy. I'm sure I'm not going to talk about the game last year. I know you're watching it, and I know you saw that pass, but let's put that in the box because every year is a new year. And I feel like if they start from preseason and all and out, I think Packers overall on the team will do even better. But I think Watson is going to have his career year.
I hope so, man. I know people are scared off because they got a lot of good receivers, a lot of good young dudes. Jayden Reed is good. Romeo Doubs is pretty good. Dontavian Wicks is pretty good. Mm-hmm. But like, I think Watson's going to be the main man.
I definitely think he's wide receiver 1. for the Packers too as well.
Yeah.
And now let's talk about players to avoid. So, obviously there are many players to avoid, like every year. But see, the thing is, as fantasy experts, we can't tell it all, right, Pat? We can only give them a you taste it. So, I'm gonna tell you a few that are on my list, but I'm gonna start with Kyren Williams. Okay, let me tell you what's going on. Let me tell you my philosophy on this. All right. So he did amazing last year, right? Especially during the playoffs. Won people chips. We all know that. But listen, the Rams, okay, drafted number 83 overall, running back Blake Corum. All right, national championship. Now, think about it. They're not gonna just draft a dude and use the assets and get him like that. There's a reason. They have a plan. Coming out from Michigan, being a national champion, getting in the third round. Look, that's competition for Kyren, right? And remind you, he is not doing any off-season workouts right now. He has a foot injury. The injury is always lagging for him, always nagging him. Last year, he was always hurt. He did good. But look, listen, Pat, he's one of those players. Those players that just come out of nowhere and just keep, like boom, like wow, whoa. That don't last for a long time. And let me remind you, Mr. James Robinson, okay? Came out of nowhere, made a lot of noise. Where my guy at now? You know what I'm saying? And Kyren is one of those players who just came out of nowhere, putting up these crazy numbers. But I don't think I need to see more of him to see if he's the real deal. But right now, I think he's on the void list. I mean, you have to, enable to perform in the NFL, you need to be healthy, and that's key.
I'm with you, brother. I thought Corum was the best pure running back, pure runner in this year's class. And I know he's not as fast or as athletic as Jonathan Brooks or Trey Benson, but like just a dude with vision, footwork, contact balance, all that. And you said it, for the Rams to go out and get him on day 2. Like they got a plan for him. I mean, I don't think he's just going to be Kyren Williams caddy this year. So, and Kyren Williams, like you said, he missed some time last year. He's a running back who weighs under 200 pounds. And generally, you don't want to give a sub 200-pound running back 20 touches a game. They did it last year for a while, and he did good things with that big workload. But maybe that's not the way they want to play it this year. So considering people are drafting Kyren in the second round, that might be a little bit of an overreach. So I'm with you, man.
Obviously, when it comes to being healthy and always being on the field, another guy I'm avoiding this year is JK Dobbins. I mean, how can you still have faith in this guy, man? I mean, some people out here, man, they're still having faith in this guy. I mean, listen, honestly, as a person, I feel very bad. I feel bad for the guy. He wants to perform, and, there's always something happening with him. Whenever he's healthy, something always goes wrong instantly. I mean, his rookie year, let's talk about that. Tore his ACL, training camp 2021. Okay. Got a major knee injury in 2022, knocked him out for 6 games. And last year, tore his Achilles week 1, out for the whole year. So not only that, wherever he goes, bad juju follows. And he will be competing with the guy who just basically traveled with him from the Ravens and to the Chargers, and that is Mr. Gus Edwards. Not looking good. For me, it's a total avoid for JK Dobbins.
Me too. He's on my list too, Hatter. And it's just the track record of dudes who play running back and have torn their Achilles coming back. It's not good. Like Deonta Foreman's about the only guy who's come back and had like any sort of career after the torn Achilles. And then you have the knee issues on top of it, and like the history of knee problems that he's had. It's really too bad. Like you said, it's sad because when he was at Ohio State, he looked like he was going to be a terrific NFL running back, and he's just gotten sandbagged by injuries, man.
Super. I mean,
Yeah.
I wish him the best, But I gotta be honest, it's all about our fancy careers. We ain't touching that name now.
Agreed, man. And you mentioned Gus. There's another guy the Chargers took in the 6th round. This rookie, Kamani Vidal, really like him out of Troy.
Slippery guy.
Yep, Troy's all-time leading rusher. Built compact, low to the ground. This dude just bounces off tacklers. He's gonna be a fun guy to watch, and I can't wait to see what he does in the preseason.
Whenever there's a committee, it's always you got to double think that. Is that really a guy you want to put in and plug in the starter? I mean, you just can't. Committees, you can't. And then that's where Ekeler comes in, another guy you got to avoid. And listen, I'm gonna say it. I'm a second gen Redskins fan. Yes, I said Redskins. Forget about the Commanders. I'm a Redskins fan. All right, and let's be honest now. That team belongs to my boy Brian Robinson. Plain out, it belongs to him. I mean, the way B-Rob showed out last year, amazing. And Ekeler, he was just not his right self last year. I mean, he only averaged 3.3 yards per carry. He was hurt the first 4 games. They only had total 5 touchdowns. And look, I know how Washington does with their running backs. It's always going to be a committee there. And I don't think Ekeler will be getting much of the running game. I think he will help in the passing game, but I'm still avoiding the guy.
Yeah, he's always been so quick and explosive. And last year we didn't see it. We saw him getting run down from behind by linebackers and just looking slow and not himself. And I know he was banged up. Maybe he gets healthier and, gets some of that electricity back, but I don't want to count on that for a running back in his late 20s who's got, some pretty high mileage on the odometer, like he's been used pretty hard. So I'm with you, man. I think at best they use him on passing downs, but I think B-Rob's going to be the guy on early downs.
I'm gonna say a couple more, and I'm sure you got some up your sleeve for quarterbacks to avoid this year. That's gonna open a lot of eyes. But one wide receiver I would avoid is Mr. Deebo Samuel. Number one, I know all my people are gonna be watching this for my league. I traded him away, and I thought I fleeced the guy. And once again, I traded it to a guy who won the damn championship. But listen, it was crazy. I was so mad. Right after I traded him, the guy gave me A.J. Brown. Okay, I gave him Deebo Samuel and Jahmyr Gibbs. Next thing you know, freaking Jahmyr Gibbs and freaking Deebo going crazy. Take him to the chip. He wins the chip. But listen, buddy, that's not going to happen this year now. This is different, okay? Deebo, he deals with a lot of injuries, and we all know that. And who knows if he's even going to be with the 49ers next year. I mean, if the 49ers, after June 1st, let him go, they saved $22 million from the salary cap. So, and I already think Ayuk is a guy in San Fran. So, listen, everyone's, forgetting the fact that Deebo is all-rounder, right? He's all-rounder. You got Christian McCaffrey there. You're feeding out too much cake now. Christian's doing a lot of the dirty work. He's catching, he's running. Everyone's, on top of the game. Deebo needs to go somewhere where they can utilize his playing skills. And I don't think it's not anymore with the 49ers, with, Christian being there, doing amazing. And just Ayuk, the way he played last year. I think it's time for a change for Deebo. But as of for now, I'm still avoiding the guy.
Yeah, that's it. And they still use him a little bit in the running game, but it's not going to be like it was a couple of years ago when he had that crazy run late in the season when he was getting like 7 or 8 carries every week. I mean, they don't need him to do that when they got Christian McCaffrey. And now they've got some other guys behind him, Elijah Mitchell. So, yeah, like I'm with you, and I'm kind of avoiding Ayuk for that same reason, Hatter. Like it's just all those. For one thing, the 49ers are a good team. And unlike, the Dolphins who might have to throw it around, 49ers aren't going to be like in track meets all season. Like their defense is too respectable for that. So like that puts a limit on the target counts for these guys like Ayuk, Deebo. They got to share the ball. They got George Kittle, one of the best pass catching tight ends in the league. McCaffrey, who catches a lot of balls. It's a lot, man. And last year with Ayuk, like he was amazing in efficiency, like great in yards per catch, yards per route run, yards per target. He's got to be that efficient to get over and like be an asset in fantasy when he's only getting like 115 targets all season, like about 7 targets a week, maybe. You need to make the most of those targets. And what if he's not as hyper efficient as he was last year? You're looking at disappointment because people are drafting him in the second round this year.
That's true.
We will have to reassess all this if they do trade either Deebo or Ayuk, because Ayuk's not happy either. He wants a new deal. So maybe something happens before training camp starts.
And, that brings me with Calvin Ridley. Avoiding the guy. I mean, look, he was not much of a reliable player last year in fantasy. He had 9 games last year with single-digit fantasy numbers. I mean, that's nasty. And now he's with the Titans now. With the, quarterback, not much experience, Will Levis, we know the whole situation with the bananas and all that type of stuff and the mayonnaise and stuff. I mean, come on. You got to cut the malarkey with all of that because, listen, they have so many players. They got newly acquired, Tyler Boyd at helm, and they got Hopkins, and they got Burks. And listen, they got Pollard, and they got Spears. All these guys want the ball. They catch the ball. I mean, I don't think, Calvin's going to be getting much. I mean, he's going to have those games where he has, like, maybe 2 touchdowns, 100 yards, but maybe 2, maybe 3. And rest of them will be, I think, in the single digits. So I would definitely avoid Calvin Ridley this year.
Respect to the Titans for surrounding their young quarterback with all these weapons. I mean, it's great that, like, if he can't do it with Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins as his top 2 receivers, like, he's probably not going to be able to do it, and they're going to know they're going to have to find their next quarterback.
Oh, yeah. If they can do it with those players, you got to go home back and start eating those bananas and mayonnaise for his whole life.
Exactly. So we can like what they're doing for Will Levis, but I don't think we should like it for Ridley and Hopkins. I mean, that's the problem. Like, especially if Levis struggles, and he did struggle. I mean, he had that beautiful game where he makes his first start and throws 4 touchdown passes. And I think he threw 4 touchdown passes in his next 8 starts. So,
he frauded a lot of people last year. After that first game, he was on the first waiver, and people all got bummed out after that and lost all their games, ain't it?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's it. I'm with you. Like, people are still kind of reaching for Ridley, and I'm not there, man.
And here comes the eye opener. Pat, you are on the clock. Quarterbacks to avoid. I know you got some up your sleeve, and this will be an eye-opening experience, I'm sure.
So I'm going to recommend that people not draft either Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts.
Wow. Let's take a moment of silence. Wow. Okay. Pat, I had my moment.
I know. So people are going to hate that. Like, Josh Allen has finished QB1 in 3 of the last 4 years. The 1 year he didn't finish QB1, he finished QB2. I don't know if he's going to finish top 5 this year, Hatter. And like, the dude is a baller. He's going to get his rushing yards and his rushing touchdowns. Although I don't think he's going to get 15 rushing touchdowns. He had never hit double digits with touchdown runs before last year. It had always been, as I mentioned before, like 6 to 9 a year. If he goes from 15 back to 7, I mean, that's like 48 fantasy points we're talking about there. Spread that over like 17 weeks. We're talking close to 3 points a week you're losing if his touchdown runs come back down to earth. The other thing is, Hatter, like, last year we saw Patrick Mahomes, this guy who'd been like every year top 4 fantasy quarterback. And last year, other than Rashee Rice, who was just, would take screen passes and run for 15 yards after the catch, they didn't have like a receiver who could get open downfield. They had bums, man. They had Marquez Valdez-Scantling. They had Justin Watson. They had Sky Moore, who's been a bust. Like, they had no one for Patrick Mahomes, and look what happened to Mahomes' fantasy numbers.
Right.
He was QB8 in total scoring in fantasy among quarterbacks, and QB12 in fantasy points per game. I'm a little worried that same thing might happen to Josh Allen after losing Stephon Diggs and, to a lesser extent, Gabe Davis. Now, I like Keon Coleman a lot. He's one of my favorite receivers in this draft. I think Khalil Shakir could wind up being pretty good. Curtis Samuel's useful, and Dalton Kincaid's a pretty good tight end. So maybe it works out. Maybe he's got enough decent pass catchers. But man, what if a couple of those guys don't pan out? What if I'm wrong about Keon Coleman as a prospect and he struggles the way Quentin Johnston did last year? What if Khalil Shakir's not ready to step up and get a lot more targets? Because he kind of, did it on a limited target count last year. Like, what if Kincaid's not ready to take a step up? Like, this could get as ugly for Josh Allen, or if those pass catchers get hit by injuries, could get as ugly for Allen as it was for Mahomes last year, as far as just not having enough guys who can make a play for him. So I kind of think, considering that he's still getting drafted usually as the first quarterback off the board, typically late second round, third round in a lot of leagues, I think that's too rich for him, man. And then Jalen Hurts, we saw all his passing numbers drop, like his efficiency, yards per attempt, touchdown rate, completion percentage. Last year, when he didn't have his boy Shane Steichen with him, Shane Steichen went to the Colts, and Steichen has been this guy who's, really nurtured quarterbacks. So we saw him drop off as a passer, but he was still getting those rushing numbers, especially the touchdown runs, the tush push, man, those 1 yard touchdowns. What if they do less tush pushes now that, number one, now that Jason Kelsey's retired, you don't have the center, the guy who's the guy digging the tunnel up front.
Right.
You've got Saquon Barkley in the backfield. Maybe they just hand it to Saquon more often rather than let Hurts plow in by himself. Right. So, what if instead of scoring like 12, 15 rushing touchdowns, what if he goes to single digits and, and we still see like him be the sort of diminished passer that he was last year. So again, it's not that I think he's going to be a bust, but he's going to get drafted as like a top 3 quarterback. And I'd kind of rather just wait, man. And QB is deep this year. Like we've got with the guys who have emerged lately. Well, we've just talked about your boy Jayden Daniels and Caleb Williams looking like he's going to be an impact rookie too. We got Jordan Love, who came on strong last year, had a really good season. We got guys who we didn't used to think of guys we could start every week in fantasy, like Jared Goff, who maybe proved us wrong on that. Like quarterback goes like 15, 16 dudes deep this year, and take advantage of that depth. Don't force the issue with Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts.
This is more of a personal problem for me. Drafted Josh Allen, I gave him away week 3, and then somehow he starts balling out in some type of way. So he's automatically canceled. He's canceled from my book. I ain't even touching the guy no more. See, I feel like if you had a player and he doesn't do good for you, that's bad juju, man. You don't need no bad juju in your team. And listen, Jalen Hurts, the tush push. Who was the first team that stopped the tush push? Right here. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's really if the Commander stopped Jalen Hurts with a tush push, boys canceled. And listen, and not only that, I had Stephon Diggs. I traded for Stephon Diggs. Josh Allen didn't even look his way. Another reason why I don't like Josh Allen. You know what I'm saying? Like, feed the guy. You got Stephon Diggs over there, not looking his way, and messed up his numbers last year. And then not only that, like we were talking about earlier, when I gave Deebo away and got AJ Brown, I thought that was a crazy steal. And then Jalen wasn't looking his way at the end of the season last year. That cost a lot of people championships. So I'm avoiding those 2 guys as well. They got so many options at quarterback this year. You can't be doing that malarkey, getting these guys in the upper second, third round. No way. They got so many people. Avoid those guys. If anything, if they're up there late, like I would say around like in the 5th round, I might think about it. But don't get tricked, guys. Don't get tricked.
Yeah, man. So let me run through like these other guys on the list really fast. I'll make my quick case against these dudes. All right. So everyone's worried about Devon Achane and how much he's going to touch the ball this year. And so people are worried about drafting him where he normally goes 2nd, 3rd round turn is kind of where he's going. But people don't seem worried at all about drafting Jahmyr Gibbs at the end of the 1st or early in the 2nd, even though after like David Montgomery came back from his injuries last year, it was from like week 9 on, week 10 on. from then through the end of the playoffs, Jahmyr Gibbs had averaged 11.3 rushing attempts a game and 2.7 catches. That's like 14 touches a game, basically about what Achane was averaging last year. And like, it's just, I don't know, man, that's not enough work to be drafting a running back that early, in my opinion. Josh Jacobs, I don't know if he's going to be a workhorse, man. Matt LaFleur has never leaned on one running back. And the thing I'm fond of pointing out is when Matt LaFleur was the offensive coordinator for the Titans in 2018, he had Derrick Henry on that team. He gave Dion Lewis 156 carries that year. Only 60 fewer than Derrick Henry that year. So he turned Derrick Henry into a committee back. Do we really think he's going to lean on Josh Jacobs that hard when he's got AJ Dillon, who he's used a lot in the past? So I don't know if Jacobs is going to be a 20 touch a game guy like some people are expecting. Michael Pittman, it's just Pittman was great with Gardner Minshew last year. Minshew really leaned on him. Anthony, they're just not going to throw as much with Anthony Richardson at quarterback. And Richardson, like as dynamic as he is as a runner, he's not a great passer. I mean, like I think he can be a decent passer, but he's not going to be great. I think Pittman's numbers are going to fall off for sure. All of those Texans receivers had her. Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell. They're all getting drafted inside the first 5 rounds. For all those dudes to like give you a profit on where they're getting drafted, CJ Stroud's going to have to throw for like 6,000 yards and 50 touchdowns, man. Like they're just all getting overdrafted. So I'm kind of staying away.
So many people to feed.
Exactly. And Jayden Reed, who I mentioned, like Jayden Reed just doesn't play as much as people think. There were only 2 games. He played 18 games last year. If you count the playoffs, there were only 2 times where he played 70% or more of the snaps for the Packers. Like he's just not on the field in 2 wide receiver sets. So he was really efficient last year, but especially if Christian Watson stays healthy this year, I think Reed's going to get a little less work than he got last year. He also scored a touchdown, like almost 14% of his touches last year, which is probably going to come down. And the last guy is David Njoku, who was great when he was playing with Joe Flacco, averaged like almost 75 yards a game, I think. When he was playing with Deshaun Watson, he averaged about 35 yards a game. And as good as he was, and as much as I love Njoku, man, I'm worried about what his numbers look like with a full season of Deshaun Watson.
Pat, you are fully verified. I fully agree with all the things you have said. And, I hope all the viewers out there, fancy players, digested some of the things my boy Pat and I said. So, Pat, I appreciate you coming on the podcast and dropping the knowledge. And, hopefully we have an amazing upcoming draft. And not only that, I got to say, people got to support everyone. And I know you're writing those articles at Fantasy Pros. So everyone out there, go check my boy Pat out and his articles on fantasypros.com. Put the link in the description. But, Pat, I appreciate you coming on.
Hatter, always love catching up with you, man. You're a real one, and appreciate you having me on, buddy.
Anytime. Everyone out there, go ahead and subscribe to the What's Really Good podcast, the FFL, my channel. Good luck drafting. More draft podcasts to come in the future. Subscribe, everyone. Take care.